Hey listeners, you're listening to the Midnight Readers podcast. Grab some tea, a midnight snack, and cuddle up in bed as we dive deep into today's most popular fantasy, sci-fi, and mysteries. We're your hosts. I'm Lily.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Christy.
This season we'll be discussing the heart-pounding military fantasy that's part Hunger Games and part How to Train Your Dragon. That's right, grab your flight jacket, we're headed to Biscayeth.
A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A reader without their book or this podcast is dead. Welcome to the revolution. My best advice, don't die and don't worry. We most likely won't eat our allies.
In this episode, we'll be discussing Book 2, Iron Flame, chapters 17 through 36, where Violet endures several torture sessions at the hands of Varish, breaks into the archives, gets busted, and then steals half the Quadrant's writers from Navarre.
Before we get into it, this is your warning for major spoilers ahead. This includes potentially all Empyrean series materials. We're also avid fans of the Moss universe and might accidentally let spoilers slip for other popular romantasy book series as well. Sorry in advance, like the books, this podcast is rated R, so be warned.
Also, a friendly reminder to please like, subscribe, and follow. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube. You can join our growing community on Patreon for bonus content and more.
Alright, last we left off, Violet, Xaden, and the crew returned to Biscayeth just in time for graduation, and while Colonel Atost exits, Varish has sadly entered the chat. And his crazy one-eyed orange burns cadets by the dozens for fun. Meanwhile, Violet is struggling with keeping the truth from her squad, still fighting with Xaden, blah, and saving Liam's sister from herself. All on top of trying to pass her new classes, complete her new research project, and visit Xaden and Sigale every other weekend. She has a lot on her plate. In this section, we start with chapter 17, whose heading reads, Many historians choose to ignore the sacrifices made by both humans and dragonkind to establish Navarre under the First Wards, in favor of praising the spirit of unification. But I would be remiss not to mention the losses suffered, both in terms of ancestral hatching grounds of each dragon breed and the civilians who did not survive the continent-wide migration that resulted from the opening of Navarre's borders, or those lost when we closed them. This is the fourth, I think, time that the dragon's original or ancestral hatching grounds is brought up. Now we know that the hatching grounds are important because that's what the venin are after. They want to go drain the veil so that they'll be fed for centuries and be super powerful and whatnot. But what about these original hatching grounds? They're being brought up over and over, and I think there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, there was a lot of it mentioned in the last section, too.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that there's something going on.
In that vein, are all of because Taryn makes it sound like things can be hidden in the veil, and that, I don't know if it's a trust issue, I don't know if it's just, chain of command or whatever, but maybe just some of the dragons know more of the history than others, and some don't.
I think there's a good chance of that.
Okay.
Maybe just like humans. It could be, if Taryn is as important as he thinks that he is. Maybe he is.
Yeah, clearly Taryn didn't know about Andarna, but Coda had to have.
Yeah, there you go.
And they say Andarna isn't exactly common knowledge either. And so it just seems odd because you would think that they would all, I don't know. I feel like we know so very little about the dragons.
Yeah.
And my thing, right now, we know the green dragons, their original hatching grounds were Biscayeth. Taryn's original hatching grounds, Taryn's and Coda's, was Aracia.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else those two things have in common, too, and that's a wardstone.
Mm.
It's interesting, the orange dragons are the Espen Mountains,
But that begs the question, too. So you've had all these dragons, different colors, and they had their own areas.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're all thrown together.
I mean, again, it's a lot like humans. It's like all of these people are from different places and, they interact and they do their thing. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I feel like that is almost a recipe for disaster, that you've got, because each one kind of controlled their own area, and now they're having to give in to, and I keep saying chain of command, but more of like a hierarchy, I guess I should say, instead. So for like Taryn going after Solus, maybe that makes the oranges not very happy that they're not, top of the food chain. To say, I don't know. It just seems like the dynamic could really be setting it up for a split and different factions within the Veil if they're all kind of stuck together versus, if they had separate spaces before. I don't know.
I think that because they're being brought up so many times that these original hatching grounds have to be important of some kind, whether or not they have some kind of magic imbued in the land, or maybe they house their own ward stones or something about them.
Maybe so. It would make sense if they had their own wards, though. But then I think what confuses me about that is that they needed humans for some reason. So if they had their own ward stone, why would they need us?
That's true.
I say us like I'm a writer.
Humans
that
had
is us.
The humans had to carve the ward stones. Maybe the original hatching grounds were the best place to put them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or maybe since the dragons are the ones that have to fire the ward stones, that was the only place they would allow it to be.
Well, there's a quote later. I think Xaden says it really casually when Violet is asking about the alloy and what it's made of, and he says dragon eggs and some other things. And she's like, dragon eggs? And he's like, yeah, they're made of metal, and they also have a lot of magic. Which, one, metal? Okay, absolutely made me go, what the fuck are you talking about? And then second of all, I think that the fact that they house a lot of magic makes a lot of sense, because they have to grow little baby dragons. But if we're putting all of this together, if you think something's going on in terms of warding, and the original 7 had to make their own ward stones, and the ancestral hatching grounds are important, maybe it's because of the dragon eggs being able to be used to create an alloy like that.
How many colored dragons are there?
Technically 7 that we know of now.
So 7 ward stones, the first 6, because weren't there 7 originally?
We don't know if there was a 7th first rider, because they hid the existence of the 7th breed.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of numbers matching up.
3s, 7s, all these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But, I mean, we do know that there is something special about the hatching grounds, because when the hatchling chooses to hatch in Aracia, it sends out this magical, explosion to let everybody know, and it puts magic back into the ground.
How do you know about the magical explosion? I do not remember that.
Yeah.
It's when they're climbing up the cliffs of Draelor.
Okay.
I couldn't think of another word. It's like, when an atom bomb goes off and then there's this wave of...
Yeah.
That it's the wave that I'm talking
about.
Like
a magical jazz hands.
Yeah. I was thinking today that I'm so glad we're rereading this, because I remember none of Iron Flame, because all I remember is the fighting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I felt so bad.
Is the fighting. And honestly, on the second read, actually this might be my third read. I don't really remember, because I listened to it a lot back and forth, but it's probably my second read. Upon this read, it didn't bother me as much, the fighting. So now I'm able to actually focus on important things, because I can just be like, whatever. Who cares if they're fighting? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think when you're first reading it, you're so afraid that they're going to fucking break up or something ridiculous. And you're like, I do not have time to worry about this.
Just get along already.
Seriously.
All right. So there is something funky with the scribes, in my opinion. Yeah. After one battle breathes, she runs and lets off some lightning power and then runs to the archives in the middle of the day, which she's not allowed to do.
Right.
And the professor kind of looks at her and is like, writers aren't allowed in here. And I got the feeling she didn't know who Violet was. And even Jacinia was like, oh, she's just some writer who, is impatient and arrogant and whatever, and it'll just be easier if I help her. But my thing is, she was Markham's mentee.
Sure.
Her mom is the head of the whole school. Not just the scribes or the writers or the healers or whatever. The whole school. She has lived here for 6+ years. Her dad was a scribe. Even the dragons knew who Violet was. They talked about her. Other writers talk about her. And then she became a writer and bonded 2 dragons. I feel like there's nobody in this world who shouldn't know who Violet Sorrengail is.
Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. I understand where you're coming from. However, I would like to argue, it's kind of like, have you ever played Legend of Zelda?
I've seen my brothers play it.
I've heard about it.
There's a running joke in the games that even though Link is this infamous character, like he is the right hand to the princess, he is well known across the entire country. Nobody knows what he looks like. And there's this running joke that, every time somebody meets him, they don't know who he is. And then they realize, they start talking to him about this person named Link. And they're like, oh, you're Link. Like after they've had like a full conversation with him and he doesn't even correct them or anything. It's kind of like that. Your name can be infamous, but that doesn't mean everyone knows what you look like. However, to play devil's advocate on myself, I guess, Violet is very distinct looking with her hair and her skin and whatnot, so I agree that it is kind of ridiculous that they don't know who she is. But I'm going to give a little bit of, grace because it's possible, just kind of silly.
Well, that's just my one point of this. Then in chapter 25, right before First Wing intercepts Second Squad and asks them how they broke out of the interrogation rooms, Violet says, a scribe cadet walks by, but I can't see who it is with the hood up. That's odd. Usually they're only in the quadrant for death roll or when Markham needs extra people. Now, some people pointed out that this scribe may have been the scribe that helped Navarre with the pamphlets. The Battle of Zolia thing. But fairly recently, Rebecca Yarros did release a snippet of Onyx Storm where it's Venin, who are dressed as scribes, who attack. And she said in an interview that this is not the first time that they have infiltrated the school as scribes.
So you think that's what this is?
Yeah, I'm like, who are you? Is this one of them?
Wouldn't that mean that they do recognize Violet?
Well, I'm saying this one mystery scribe person with the hood up. I'm just saying they're a little sus.
That's fair. I never caught onto it. Yeah, It does make sense.
And it does say, like, one of the headings, I think it's chapter 30. Barring invasion, only writers and designated scribes are permitted in the writer's quadrant. To enter uninvited as infantry or even healer is to welcome a swift death. So, of course, if they are going to try to infiltrate the writer's quadrant, they would have to dress as scribes. Because writers, they would show their face.
That, and also, like Violet says in this section, I can't remember what chapter, she says that the scribes have the most numbers compared to the writers and the infantry, so it'd be the easiest to blend in.
It's when they when she rushes in, the scene where the teacher's like, no, actually, I think it's during the heist. He says it
Probably
during the
is.
heist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she said it's still not a lot, but it's twice as many cadets as the writers.
Yeah.
But I just find it interesting that this scribe is walking around like, you can't see me.
Yeah. It is interesting. Definitely suspicious.
Although those who say it's the scribe that helped Navarre could be right as well.
I could see either one.
But yeah, that's just my, like, I'm watching them.
Yeah.
Watching the scribes.
Especially because of the snippet from Onyx Storm.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was what really was like, when I read that, I was like, who are you? Are you a venin? Are you an actual scribe? Let me see your face. Violet knows everybody. Let me see your face. Speaking of, what do y'all think about Nasia? Him sleeping all the time.
Some people like a little too convenient.
Yeah, some people think he's drugged. That people have been drugging him.
Who do you think's drugging him?
Maybe the venin sneaking in? Although
Maybe.
wouldn't they just kill him?
That would make sense.
Some people think it's Jasenia, so she doesn't have to
That's
deal
what I
with
was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I mean, like, what are the odds? It's just he's just not doing his job, though. Like, there's always one person.
I mean, this is military school.
He's a scribe.
If you fall asleep on the job, you're still gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, well, I mean, they seem to know he falls asleep on the job, and they just allow it. Jasenia's like, yeah, I kind of hoped he would be asleep.
Well, on to a less, I guess,
conspiratorial route.
Nolan and Varish. In last section, Ree has this theory that there's something going on with Nolan, and Riddick's like, yeah, he's got something going on with Varish, and I think there's some air wielders involved. Caroline Ashton is involved.
And they were right.
Yeah, this is going to be more conspiratorial, I think.
Yeah.
Before we're going down the hole. Let's go down the hole. I like this hole.
Just the hole I was looking for. Not to derail us a bit, but can I just say that Rhiannon is so underrated. She's a character.
She is.
Not only did she catch on to Nolan and Varish, but she knows something is going on with Violet, and she
puts
still
that shit together fast.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. As soon as she's given the variables, she's like, there's this, what's going on? Tell me. And I have to say, she is just a really good friend. She sticks by her side regardless of what's going on, and I feel like so many people would not have done that.
Yeah. Like I said in our trailer, she is one of my favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I joked about, can I change my answer? But she's still, if she dies, I think it'll be on par with Liam.
Yeah, it would suck. It would really suck if she died. When Violet and Xaden are fighting in the corridor, and even though she's upset with Violet, she's like, I will put your ass in the ground. I don't give a fuck. If my signet's not capable of it, I will find a way. Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, she's the best. She's such a good friend. Love her.
Yeah.
But back to Nolan and Varish.
Yes.
What do y'all think about their relationship?
Why do I feel like Nolan is being held captive? On one hand, I don't trust him because of the way that he handles things with Violet. But then on the other hand, he doesn't seem eager to do everything himself. So part of me wonders, is he being controlled? Is somebody holding something over? Is he being blackmailed? What's going on? Because I feel like it can't be as simple as Nolan just being a horrible human.
I don't know. I think he's an evil mastermind.
You think he's an evil mastermind?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yes. It's really weird. Just, there was a couple things that kind of stood out to me, like the fact that he keeps talking about mending his soul.
That is
And then
weird.
here's the thing, we find out it's Jack, which I don't understand why he's so important. But Markham says that Nolan mended bone after bone. But Nolan said it was mending a soul. So does Markham not actually know what he did?
Well, he isn't going to announce in Battle Brief that Jack turned venin.
Yeah, but even like it just, I don't know. It just seems like he doesn't truly understand the depths of what Nolan was capable of doing and what he was able to do. And I kind of wonder if Jack was maybe some of his experiment. He feels like a little bit like Vard to me with his experiments. And I feel like that's the direction that he might go.
I could see him as like a scientist type, like evil scientist type. Yeah. I definitely could, but I feel like for me, he leans more towards kind of like a Frankenstein's monster situation. Like, less that he's doing it out of, I don't know. I think he thinks there's a righteous reason for it. But he's crazy. The fact that he's like, I should mend his soul, to me, makes me think that he thinks he's doing something amazing and great, but it's actually horrifying.
I was just about to say the same thing. He thinks that he's got these, good intentions and he's doing good for good's sake. And, I mean, if you can save somebody's soul, isn't that a good thing?
Right.
But
you can't play God like
that. Yes. There are limitations. I forget which chapter, and I think it was Kaori, where he said, it might be actually in a later chapter, I'm not sure. Every writer doesn't believe that they've reached the limits of their signet. I don't know if the dead ones feel the same way. So he's pushing himself to do as much as he thinks he can.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Naolin, because he thought that he was going to be able to bring Brennan back. And while he possibly did, we don't really know what happened. We have a suspicion that something happened to Naolin. So it's like he is going farther than his power probably should.
I think for me, Nolan is the embodiment of the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
It's even after what he does to Violet.
I think he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He thinks that she is being a traitor to Navarre, and she's turned against him.
Yeah.
And I'm not making excuses for him. What he does is horrific, and I think that he should die for his efforts.
Yeah.
But
I'm on
I
the
do
same
think
page.
In his head, he thinks that he is on the righteous path.
I agree.
Now, I know you do the audiobook. Lily, are you doing the audio or are you reading it?
I'm doing both.
Okay. I was curious just because I know when I'm reading Nolan, I read him as like kind of thing. And when he's doing a lot of this stuff, but I don't know if maybe the audiobook reads him a little bit different way.
In the audiobook, he sounds sympathetic, and
he does.
When she's in the interrogation rooms,
he sounds kind of pathetic, actually.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, Violet. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, he's old, and he's been mending her for 6 years. They established that she trusts him with her life in that interrogation room, and he helps her out. So you kind of think of him as like, oh, well, he's a good guy. Well, he might think he's a good guy, but for the wrong people. And it's kind of like that whole, depending on your perspective, who the villain is.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, the fact that Jack comes back and he is different, and I think that, later we see some obviously a different side of him as well. But at first he seems to be like taking things differently. He's turned over a new leaf, so to speak. And he, quote unquote, saves Violet, even though it's kind of suspicious that he saves Violet. Part of me questions if Jack made the decision to become Venin, or if it was forced upon him.
Forced.
I know Jack is a piece of shit, but was it something he had to do to live? Or was it a choice that he made?
Now, I do believe in, I think later on in the book when they're talking to Jack, and it's been revealed that he's Venin, he does say that when the mountain hit, he channeled Venin to survive.
Okay.
But he was already Venin by then. I personally think that he's a power-hungry biatch who channeled on his own. Now, who taught him how to channel? How did he know how to channel?
I think
That
he's
it
an
was
evil
even
experiment.
possible?
I think he's an evil experiment. I think they taught him. I don't know. I feel like the Venin are coming out of Biscayeth anyways.
It's quite possible.
Yeah, I mean, that was my feelings about Jack before I reread this section. But then I had the thought, and it came to me, and I was like,
Well, some people have suggested that there might be a whole room full of venin that they're experimenting on.
that would not shock me, actually.
And
That's
they
what I
only
think.
brought Jack back out to distract.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, eventually Vera says something about Jack that we can't trust that kid for anything, really, can we? Too unpredictable.
Yeah, that was during
Well, he is.
That was during the interrogation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's just the verbiage on there makes it sound like that he's an experiment gone somewhat wrong.
He's not a perfect soldier.
Yeah.
There are some thoughts that the new leaf that Jack turns over is him being controlled. Like they're giving him the elixir so that he can't really talk to his dragon or, get his signet power. There's the fact that they're using air wielders to keep him above the ground so that he can't channel. There's thought that maybe his actions are being controlled by, hey, we'll give you a little bit of power if you behave properly. My thing, though, is these are people who willingly just let the enemy roam free in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they have a bodyguard on him?
I mean, that's a good-ass question.
There's Caroline Ashton, but are they really going to tell her that he's a venin? Maybe she's a venin. Who knows?
I could see her being a venin.
But why did they trust him? He's literally the enemy that they're trying to keep secret from everybody.
I don't know if it's the enemy, though. I really don't think it is. I really think that there's some sort of use that they're using them for to either get power or money or some sort of response.
I wonder if they're trying to find a way to be able to channel magic without the dragons.
Or so, yeah, or that, absolutely. I mean, because that was the other thing about Varys that I was kind of curious about, because I go back and forth. At first I thought, would there be a way for Varys to control Solus to some degree? Because
and he does
Solus,
kind of imply.
Yeah, he does, but
he does.
There's like two opposite things that I can't quite decide which one I fall more towards, because for Solus, you can't imagine they really give a shit about human affairs in that kind of sense. But he seems to really mimic Varys' hate from the get-go, even before the whole Taryn, running him off. But Rihanna later mentioned something about, there's something off about Solus, which, come on, anybody can pick that out. But Varys seems so controlled. So could it be the other way around, and that Solus is controlling Varys? But then I think this is what you were talking about later on. Varys says something to the effect of, some of us do not bow to the whims of our dragons. In fact, we influence them.
Right.
And in fact, that when...
He basically tells them.
that when Jack is revealed to be venin, he literally controls Bade right in front of them. Bade's eyes glaze over. Now, do we see that with Solus? Not really. But who knows?
Yeah.
She was ducking and covering. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would
I'm
make
sure.
sense.
I'm pretty sure he's controlling Solus.
There was also a part during right before Violet and Second Squad escape from the interrogation rooms where Nolan is talking to Varish and he says, about our other patient, I think I've done all I can. I need your special skills. What the fuck are his special skills? Because his special skills that we know of are interrogation and seeing people's weaknesses. How's that going to help with mending a
Maybe
soul?
if he could see Jack's weakness.
I think his weakness, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it went from Nolan saying, I'm failing, to literally them releasing Jack a few days later.
Well, maybe they figured it out. I don't know. But I do agree that it seems like there's more going on than Jack.
And I know that there are some people who say that Rebecca Yarrow said that Varish is not a venin, although I cannot find it anywhere out of her mouth on the internet. So I'm taking that with a grain of salt. And to me, Varish is venin.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now
Varish is a kebab.
We never see him. Why is he a kebab?
He's a kebab because she runs him through.
Oh.
I mean,
well,
I was like, what?
We never see Varish.
When I think of a
red
kebab,
eyes.
I think of roasted over a fire. I was like, a
That would've been
kebab?
great.
Nobody said
well,
no,
I
on
guess
fire.
I should have said it. He's a raw kebab.
A raw kebab.
Well, we never see Varish with
Oh my
red
God.
eyes. He does seem to control his dragon. There are multiple times that Violet looks at him and describes him as inhuman. And then during the dungeon torture session, she says she looks into his soulless eyes. Who are soulless? The venin. Also,
So he comes back?
no, she killed him with the only thing that will kill venin as well.
True.
Okay,
Didn't even
I forgot
consider
about Me neither. Whew.
So
okay, good.
I also want to point out, and we should talk about the dragons' names at some point on the podcast.
Soulless.
Soulless. I mean, it's like it's pointing
sad.
right there. This person's venin.
It's sad because Solas makes me think of sun.
Well, the name means light,
Yeah.
but
Well, maybe Solas is a very sweet, wonderful dragon filled with much light, and now that Varish is gone, he will be huggable. You know? I like the one eye.
Do you not remember what happens to Solas?
Uh-oh. No, I don't.
bye-bye. He
Christy.
attacks Violet, and Darna kicks his butt.
I feel so sad that you didn't remember that.
I don't remember that, and I kind of started to see him like Hanji, because he's got the little one eye.
Yeah, I do feel like I will say that if Varish did not get his nasty little clutches into Solas, maybe Solas could have been a better dragon. I don't know.
Yeah. Aw, okay. Now that I'm sad, let's continue.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, in chapter 22, we have the first of a series of venin dreams. A lot of people thought that this could be an indicator of her second signet. It was one of my first thoughts when reading this book. But Violet is in this dream. She first had this dream at Basgiath. Thaden's not there. She's running towards Tyrn and Indarna, and the venin is kind of controlling this dream. And just like that snippet where one of the venin just kind of pops out of existence, I think that the venin who is in this dream might have the dream wielding power.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little eerie the way he talks to her in the dream. It's definitely straight to her. He's like, come join me. It's not like something that is happening ambiently in the dream. Also, I think that the fact that she notices that he sounds disappointed to me, is the biggest factor about it. Because who is he? What is his identity?
That's true. We're led to believe that it's the one from Ressin that got away, but I don't know if that's ever confirmed.
Right. But even then, do we know who he is to her? Is it someone that we should be connecting to her in any way? Or is he just a random sage that has had his eye on her, like evil mastermind type? For some reason, to me, it feels like he's connected to her.
You like family?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. If it's not family, it's somebody that we should know, it feels like, because why is he disappointed? Sure, if he's this mastermind that's been coming after her for a while, of course he would be disappointed that she doesn't join, but I feel like it would read differently. If he was disconnected from her as a person, I feel like it would be more frustration if he was some big baddie evil guy that we don't know. But because it's someone that I think is connected to her, I think the disappointment reads as she's not coming over to me, even though I really want her here. It's more intimate than him not getting his way.
Personal.
You know?
I read it as disappointing, as in like he's trying to mentor her and she's failing.
Maybe.
He's trying to teach her. I forget, does he say it in this dream or is it another dream where he's like the same failed tactics?
Yeah, I do remember him saying that. That could be the case. I know that that's the goal, right? But something about it feels different.
I mean, there's a lot of who is this? I think the identity of this sage is important. Did he see her in Ressin? Was he the one that got away? Or is this a new one that maybe somebody told him about? Or now I did put out that he's wearing a maroon robe in this, and all the ones in Ressin were wearing purple.
Oh yeah, the robe colors.
Yeah, I don't know if they're kind of thinking that maroon and purple are similar enough to call them the same thing. To me, maroon is more of a red, but
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so wasn't one of the theories that Lilith, there was something with the venin when she was pregnant with Violet?
Yeah.
Right? So could it be somebody connected to that aspect, that they knew what she would become or knew what her ancestry was?
Could be the venin that attacked her mom while being pregnant.
Yeah,
Wild thought, Violet is illegitimate and her father is not her father. Wild thought, her father is this man, this sage.
That is a popular theory, although usually the dad is a god instead of a venin.
Whatever.
And so that's the thing, is he would know what she was capable of, and that's why he would be so disappointed, because he would expect his daughter to follow in his footsteps, maybe.
Yeah, it's something like that I don't know why, it's just the vibe I get.
Yeah.
Now, Brittany, do you know who this man is?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Because Brittany has finished Onyx Storm, but
I may know who this is. May.
Okay, you have an inkling.
Yeah.
The
only thing that I would potentially know more is a name, and I don't even know if it's the same person.
Okay.
But as far as like relationship goes, no idea.
Okay. But I just was like, I need to know what Brittany knows. Because sometimes it's okay. Like, I'm like, whatever. But this genuinely would piss me off if Brittany knew and she was just not telling us.
This is why I Google.
No, I don't Google things. I do not. Or I try not to.
Yeah, but
Google
half
things.
the time we get shit from Brittany and it's not even accurate.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want her to just lie to me. Gaslight me.
These are genuine theories that I had prior to Onyx Storm.
But you read Onyx Storm, and you're saying these are prior to Onyx Storm.
So you're saying they're no longer your theories.
Right.
And I'm also saying that I don't know who this person is.
It's like circular talk.
Brittany is evil.
Anyway.
Good. Moving on.
Brittany is venin.
Oh, God.
You're calling me just because I have ginger hair does not mean I don't have a soul.
Oh, God.
Anyway. I want to point out where he says, "Fight me and die, or join me and live beyond the ages, but you will never escape me, not when I've waited centuries for someone with your power." So, again, this person is centuries old.
That doesn't mean he couldn't fuck Lilith. No, I'm just kidding.
This person is
just
centuries old, so venin live forever, potentially.
Potentially.
Now, I will point out that there hasn't been a lightning wielder in a century. Why
so it can't be the lightning thing. Yeah. No, that was my thought as well. I don't think the reason he cares about her is the lightning.
I think there's something else special about her.
So for these venin, if they can live for centuries, it means they've got to have access to some major magic like the veil. Are they in ownership of that seventh den or whatever? And that's why they can live for centuries?
They drained the entire barrens. We don't know what happened to the previous ancestral homes or where they are, or ancestral breeding grounds.
My theory is just if they have a source of power, then they can make themselves live. I don't think it has to be, dragons. It could be anything.
Now, my biggest thing about this dream is that I found it super interesting that she woke up with her fingers wrapped around one of her daggers. Her runed daggers that we find out later in the book all have special powers of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean fabric knots? Culture, violence. Culture.
But yeah, I wonder, what does this dagger do? Did it protect her from the dream? Did it pull her out? What happened? I want to know what this dagger does.
It's a good question. If it is warded against venin in some way, or meant to, maybe it did.
Like a
Protect
dream
her
dagger?
mind? Well, I was thinking protect her mind some way, the way that one of the daggers is supposed to protect her from Cat.
But that's so funny, because if that's the case and her body kind of, and her subconscious knew to grab onto the dagger in her sleep, wouldn't that be kind of like a reflex of something you've known before? Almost like a second life?
I don't know, maybe it was like whenever she goes up to the door, the dagger heats up. So maybe the dagger heated up and her body just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be so Lord of the Rings, like the sword that glows with the orcs. The name is not coming to my head, but that would be cool.
All right, time to talk about wards and wardstones. So, take out your maps.
Okay, let's go.
All right, teacher.
I know, right?
Class, open your books to page 0.
Okay, my thing is, Mira describes the wards as an umbrella. So, to me, it feels circular.
You'd think.
But what are the shapes of this ward? Because it literally stretches all the way to Montserrat and Samara and is able to ward them, but it doesn't protect Tyrandor?
Where is Tyrandor? Oh, I see. I mean, okay, this is how I think about it. Like Mira was saying, it can be an umbrella, but based on what Mira was saying and what we learned kind of later in the books, the daggers are placed to help ground the wards and strengthen them. So if there's nothing in Tyrandor to hold on to, which is not necessarily the case, then you would think that they could avoid it, right? But it is weird.
She said that they tried to ward Athbean one time and they couldn't do it. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And Athbean is
with all the weapons they've been smuggling, you'd think that there should be wards reaching out.
Yeah. In chapter 22 as well, Violet says, I found a text that said the first 6 didn't just establish the wards, but personally carved the first ward stone.
Mm-hmm.
Who carved the one in Eratia? Was it the first 6? I mean, technically, Eratia is part of Navarre. So why they wouldn't have activated that ward stone to protect Navarre? It's not like they were doing it in Poor Meal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Warg
the
didn't want
first
to
6
share.
weren't, but the first 6 weren't the first. So could there not have been somebody that came before that did that particular one that they based maybe future stuff off of?
That, I mean, could be. It could be. Who knows who carved it? Who knows who put the runes in there? And who knows how many they made?
Yeah.
Because we already knew. It's just an interesting line to put in here about the first ward stone when we already know that there's 2.
Yeah.
So maybe it's implying that there's a 3rd, and maybe a 4th, maybe a 5th. Maybe they can protect the whole continent. Maybe that's how they got rid of the venin in the first place.
Interesting.
There's another one where in chapter 30, she says, and Sawyer stumbles onto a 300-year-old passage that confirms more than one ward stone was created. So it's kind of like,
I love that Sawyer comes across that.
Yeah. So it seems kind of like she's pushing the whole more than one, but we already know that. So maybe more than 2?
Maybe. I honestly can't see why there wouldn't be more than 2. If these are something so important, why wouldn't there be more than 1? Much less more than 2.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an entire continent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd want to cover the whole continent.
Yeah. Or, I mean, even at least your whole country, if you're like Warwick and don't want to share, you would cover your whole country, which includes Tyrrendor and Athene.
Right. Yeah.
And since we got our maps out anyway, I want to bring up Garrick and this whole... So, Xaden and Violet go to meet the Flyers while she's in Samara.
And Garrick's there.
And then Xaden's like, Garrick's going to deliver your second one. And it's at Athene. How far? I mean, it is Athene from Samara. Isn't that quite a long distance to be traveling?
That is kind of crazy. I mean, it looks far. I wish that this map was... This is so nerdy of me. But I wish that this map had the actual measurements on it with the... I forget what it's called. With the flight times on it, so we could do math like that.
Yeah.
Like a real map.
It's an 8-hour flight to Samara with Tarn. It's usually a 12-hour flight. So it's an 8-hour flight with Tarn to Samara from Besgaeth. It is a 7-hour flight from Besgaeth to Athene.
Athene? With Tarn or in general?
In a riot.
Okay.
So probably faster with Tarn.
It's pretty crazy.
So
it's
got to be at least 4
the math
to
ain't
6 hours.
Is this a oversight or is this intentional?
No. I mean, I just can't believe I never picked up on that, because when we first meet Xaden at Samara, he's in that pit.
Yeah.
Fighting.
And he's fighting Garrick.
No, he's in that pit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the book.
I'm thinking
he's in that pit fighting for a pass. And
yeah.
There is no mention of Garrick being there at all.
Right.
And every rider is down there. So it makes me wonder, is Garrick even stationed at Samara at all?
I don't think he is.
I don't think he is either.
But if he's not, how is he getting away with being there?
I mean, Xaden gets away with flying to give Griffins weapons.
True.
But, I mean, maybe he's just there to spar with Xaden and then disappear.
Yeah. It's
They're
a lot
sneaky.
Yaros is sneaky.
She is.
But I would really like to know where he's stationed. Whether it is at Samara or not.
I think, yeah, it's a good question.
In chapter 35, it talks about there's a place smelling like moss and iron that's underground where they take her after Nolan drugs her. I think that's where it was, after Nolan drugs her. And but if you go back to where they're talking about, I think it was in a journal or somewhere, but it talks about at the birth of an iron rain is with the wardstone or something. Damn, why can I not remember this now? I think it was literally today that I read it. But
It's
I didn't
right
know.
after they get out of the archives. She opens up the journal and starts reading, and that's where that phrase came
Oh, with her and Zayden right before he leaves. Okay, that's right. That's right. Is that something? Okay, first of all, I was like, shit, did I already read this? And maybe I'm not remembering that this is already answered and something that we find out later and that I should already know this. Do I already know this?
I don't know. I know that the wardstone is not iron. So would this be similar for any wardstone? I think that it's just used as a descriptor.
Okay.
Because it's a black flame.
Well, it's a black flame, but the area, I think, was more of what it was talking about, that it was at the birth of an iron rainer. That's what I thought it was kind of saying. So when she said that one place smelled like moss and iron, I didn't know if that would be connected. No? You're looking at me like I'm nuts. Okay.
I'm not understanding. But, I mean, we can bring it back up once we get to the actual wardstone if you want.
Okay, that's fine.
While we're off topic, can I just say today I had a thought when I was listening to the book, and because I've been doing a lot of research in the same vein recently, I had a thought, is Rebecca Yarros Mormon? Or maybe ex-Mormon? And there's a lot of talk online that she probably is.
Really?
And
there's a lot
that
of authors
made
who are.
so much sense. Yeah, a lot of fantasy authors are. And
Right.
I just looked it up. There doesn't seem to be a consensus because there's no confirmation anywhere. But a lot of people say that she's an ex-Mormon. And I just think that would make a lot of sense. And I don't remember what I heard in the book that made me go, huh. You know what I mean? But something triggered it today. I can't remember what it was, but I honestly think it's all the gods and also the fact that there's temples. There was something else. And then all the sex. I don't know. I think, which, I mean, sex has no indication, but something about it was something about it. If you ever hear anything, let me know, because I would be fascinated to give John one more notch in his Mormon book.
Readers, if you have any thoughts on this, tell us in the comments.
Because of something we're working on for next season, it's been on my mind really heavily.
All right. On to interrogation assessment. And I have some big old sort of, I mean, they're not long rants, but I feel like bringing Dane in is fucking cheating.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, well, did we expect them to play nice?
No.
I mean, but if you're being assessed on how well you can hold information in, drugging them to not be able to have power, and then bringing Dane in, who literally can steal your memories, whether you fight it or not.
I mean,
I feel like it's cheating,
but like,
especially when your life is on the line.
Vera's just there to perform some sort of help for the cadets. He's there to get information. That's it.
Exactly.
I understand that. I do. But how Grady could let this happen? He's a full rule follower, remember? Like, I feel like that's cheating. And it doesn't
like Grady.
We've already established that rule followers don't actually follow the rules. They follow the power. And if he considers Varys to be the power, then he is the rule.
There you go. There you go. It doesn't have to make logical sense. That's not how this works.
Nope.
But wouldn't that ruin the assessment, too? He is a teacher who is trying to grade them on how well they keep their information to themselves. And if they don't pass, they die.
I don't know if, I don't think in this case, Grady would have to give her an A+, because she did so well, they had to bring in Dane.
I will say this, as far as the interrogation, the actual dungeon interrogation goes, I think that's an automatic A.
Yeah.
She shouldn't even have to take the rest of RSC. She just passes.
Agreed. Agreed, because they beat the shit out of her.
For 5 days.
And she doesn't give anything up.
Not a thing. Not until
Not
Dane
even
comes up.
I would honestly even say that the way that she handles his powers is also a credence to her, because
he was not looking for what she
figures
gave.
it out. She figures out how to get around it. She's just too smart.
I will say this, and I was going to mention it later, but since we're already talking about Dane and whatnot, the assassination attempts, I would have also sent him his dad saying, secrets die with the people who can keep them.
Right.
And the little secret messages that his assassins keep failing.
He's like a Looney Tunes villain. Like one of those that yap about what they're going to do, so much so that they give the hero time to kill them and stop it. Or, well, I guess I don't kill them in Looney Tunes, but they thwart their plans because they're so fucking stupid. And I mean, seriously, for Atos to be like, it's me. Like, really?
It's giving Game of Thrones, Lannisters always pay their debts. Okay, dude, get over yourself.
Speaking of assassination attempts, this is not a big discussion, but how the fuck did Mason die? Did his dragon die? Couldn't his dragon be like, nope, that dude assassinated him?
It is suspicious, but they seem to be picking people off one by one, and people are looking the other way. So however he died, it must not have been in a way that people could question.
And nobody but Ree is putting together the fact that they're being assassinated?
Can we talk about her? Because I just feel like... I feel like there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. I swear to Amari, if you say yes one more time.
That was in Navarre class.
Yes.
There is a scene I have on the Gush About list where Ree and Violet are walking to get on Tarn, and they're talking, and she's just like, do I have to pull it out of you? Do you want me to use our new interrogation tricks?
So that strikes the memory for what I wanted to talk about, because there is a line that I really loved when it's kind of the first time that Violet opens up to Ree a little bit, even though she doesn't want to. It's kind of like pulled out of her.
She breaks.
And yeah, she just breaks. And that's so fair because she wants to talk to Ree. And I mean, she should be able to. Personally, I have a whole another issue with that about Xaden being like, you can't talk to your friends, and Violet agreeing. And I understand Violet's thought process, and I understand Xaden's. But not once would I keep that to myself. If I trusted my friends with my life, then they can hear this noise. So, but there's...
I understand I wouldn't want to risk you or Christy or,
same,
my loved ones. But also, I would totally spill.
That's exactly my feelings. That's exactly my feelings. I, of course, would want to keep you safe. And for that reason, I would consider keeping it to myself. But we're already in a dragon school, and we could die any day. So, like, realistically, what's one more secret?
Well, and everybody should get to choose what secrets they want to keep, and it's not forced.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that in the nature of their relationship, their friendship, to keep that secret from Rhiannon, I could maybe see from the others. But because she's so close with Rhiannon, it would almost be like a slap in the face.
Yes.
But when she opens up and they're talking about orally dying, and Rhiannon's kind of accusing her a little bit of not
cruel.
being, of being a little cruel, of not being sensitive enough. And Violet's like, yes, it is awful that Aurelie fell, that she died, but I think I'm a better writer for having been there, having watched her fall to her death, and known that if I didn't get my ass moving, I was going to be next. Obviously, this is about Ressin, and not about Aurelie dying. But I think that this line is so poignant, and I thought, wow, what a great writer. Like, I think Rebecca Yarros is so underrated in that she kind of gets this psychology in a way and puts it on page and is able to spell that out and in a very emotional way. I think she writes Violet perfectly that way.
Not only that, but the complexity of the emotions, because later on she's watching a flyer who just found out their friend, family, whatever die, and they actually show emotions, and she's like, and so it's like it's warring against yourself of, I hate that my friends are dying, but it has also made me stronger, but I don't want it to happen, but
like her avoidance of
life.
Learning the cadets' names. She doesn't want to learn anyone's names because if they die, she'll feel less connected. That is such an interesting addition to Violet's character.
Yeah, and the thing about, like, I put this scene on the gush over list because it gets to me no matter how many times I listen to it. It gets me every time. I want to cry for her because she does just break.
I know.
It is heart-wrenching.
And when she eventually really does tell Rhiannon what's going on, which it's a perfect time, I have to say, when she does spill it, because Rhiannon is like connecting those dots. But when she eventually does tell her, I remember having such a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Just being like,
thank God. This is over. It's about damn time. Like,
yeah. Because not only is it so hard for the reader to read Violet fighting with Xaden, you're also going to throw in a difficult fight with Rhiannon? Like, come on. That sucks.
Yeah.
And speaking of Violet's no-name policy, a lot of readers were bitching about Onyx Storm, about how all these new characters were introduced and I don't know who they are. And I wasn't bitching, but I understand the feeling. Like, whenever they were talking about it, I was like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. This right here sets up why we don't know who they are. She
That's fair.
Doesn't want to learn their names. She calls them the girl who bites her nails. Like, of course we don't know them because Violet, I mean, later on she does kind of admit that she does know their names, but she is actively trying to block it out. And this is why we as readers don't know, because Violet is trying her best not to know.
Well, personally, this is a personal gripe of mine, but the people who read fantasy novels and are like, oh my god, it's so much information, so many people. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Same.
Shut up. Like, oh my god, your brain couldn't handle it.
The
Just
world
reread
building.
It. I don't know. For some reason
book.
That bothers me. It's right there. The source material is here. You can go back over it. It is a lot at once. I understand. But if you just try a little harder.
And we do actually get introduced to all of their names at Threshing, where we do find most of their squad actually made it through. I think there was one that they were uncertain of, and we never do get verification whether or not they came through. But gotta say, my heart soared when Arik came out with a sapphire blue, and when Sloane came out with a strawberry red dagger tail, just like Liam.
Yes.
I love that Liam is all over these pages, even though he's not with us anymore.
Don't make me cry. I will beat you up.
Sorry.
It's beautiful. Also, I think it's really cool that Arik got a blue dragon, and I think it's yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
He's
Arik
a fun character.
Out of all the first years, Arik is my favorite. Definitely. Of course, we don't know the others, but
yeah.
You know. So
Arik, being our in disguise prince, is needed to break into the royal vaults. And real quick, another scene that I put on the gush about list. The fight that Xaden and Violet have in front of Second Squad. I don't remember if this was then or this was now or before, but
when they're just talking in their minds.
Yeah, and Riddick's like, what's
happening? I think they're fighting.
They're like in each other's faces going,
yeah.
That's how I picture it.
Oh my God.
I just picture them staring intently at each other for 5 minutes, and their friends are just like, is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, and then I can just see Xaden going,
It's comical, for sure.
Because there's no actual words being said. I just picture them with all these dramatic moves.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, there are words being said, but, not that Ree and Sawyer and Riddick can tell. And
yeah.
It also points out, like, as much as we know about their mind-to-mind communication, and Liam knew, definitely knew.
It's like, who else knows? Not many people.
But yeah, I think this is their first. But anyway, the heist. I think they could have given themselves more than an hour to do this.
Oh, yeah. I thought there was a reason for them doing an hour.
It was so that, once they get out, the vaults are sealed, nobody can get back in, and there are the least amount of people at that hour.
Right.
But still, they could have totally given themselves a little bit more time to search.
Yeah.
They came down to the wire and they had 2 people searching.
Yeah. And the fact that, so Arik has to be there because he's possibly the only person that can retrieve it with the wards. And that's how Imogen and the rest of them find out who he is. But the fact that he pulls her through the wards, and I'm like, okay, you devious little motherfucker.
That made me question him a little bit.
Did it?
To be fair,
the links that he'll go to, I don't think he's a bad guy, but would he sell them out in the end because it seems like he really hates his dad.
To be fair, I don't think he did it out of malice. I think that he made a logical.
I don't think he did it out of malice either, but
maybe a little bit of malice towards Xaden, but
no, because I don't think he would do that to Violet. But I don't, at least malice, at least with intent. But my thing is, if it serves his purpose to kind of strand them or sell them out, would he do it later on if it calls for it for him to get to whatever conclusion he wants? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think in this moment, he is telling himself, I know my dad. I know that he wouldn't have this vault unless he could pull somebody through. And so he makes the logical, even though it is risky, he makes the logical assumption that he could pull somebody through.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. That means with Brittany, either he is evil as shit, and so she's taking his side, so we will be shocked and appalled when he screws them over.
Good.
Or
he's very good.
He's good.
I love
but you just don't know.
I think he's good. I don't think that he had evil intent or anything. I think it was a logical jump in his decision making.
And
it makes sense.
I think he did it the way he did it to pay back Xaden a little bit, because he obviously does not like Xaden. But I think he did, I would believe in my heart that he thought it through and that he didn't really think that he was putting Violet in danger.
But see,
as he says, he's known Violet for a lot longer than these people.
Right.
He cares
Brittany
about her.
Is so standing up for him, then that's what makes me think he is fucking evil. Just because of her argument in support of him. Now makes me think.
I stood up for Seth. I stood up for Seth. I stood up for Sophia. I stood up for Darcy. I'm just saying.
I mean, I understand you not trusting her.
But no,
I think he's good.
I think he's good. I worry at some point if he'll make a decision that is not,
Yeah.
That's more of a personal decision.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I definitely understand on one hand because of his upset with Xaden. I could see him making a rash decision in the middle of a moment because he hates Xaden. Not to harm anyone else, just because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If he was in a weird situation and Xaden was the obstacle, I could see it not going the way we would want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him sacrificing Xaden.
Yeah. I mean, Xaden did kill his brother.
His brother was an asshole.
But apparently he was an asshole. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that...
sounds like.
I mean, that doesn't mean that Arik isn't still upset with him.
That's true. That's true.
And
But
Xaden said he was a craven, which is pretty wild, because what did his brother do to get killed?
He attacked Garrick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
My lovely, lovely Garrick.
I do love Garrick.
Anyway, I do find it interesting the books that they name while going through this vault. And there's The Study of Winged Creatures, which I assume would include Wyvern.
Mm-hmm.
The History of the Island Wars.
And maybe Griffin as well.
Griffin too, yes. Books on early wars, the history of the individual provinces, mythology of the gods, which I would really like, mining practices. There's a book on the Second Croveland Uprising, which is what Violet's father was doing his research about, which, Colonel Atos said that her father once mentioned that there was a book about feather tails in regards to that. So what if this is that book? There's also a weather almanac, which weather's kind of funky around Violet.
It truly
Interesting
is.
that it was noted.
You notice it was raining when she tells Xaden that she told Rhiannon and her friends.
I did not notice that.
I noticed.
And the other thing that was mentioned was an arts and craft book. Arts and crafts like,
Fabric
runes?
knots.
Fabric knots?
What did you think I was going to pick up a hobby? Come on, Violet. Everything he does is intentional. Really?
Yeah. Culture. There was a lot of Tirish history as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like these books are going to come into
Play. Or maybe they're foreshadowing.
Yeah. And I do love that Riddick was the one who came through with do I know something about the archives that you don't know?
Oh my God, yes. That was awesome.
There's a couple things that I want to point out in this chapter, the heist chapter. It's one of my favorites in the series. So
we all love a good heist.
I know, right? So Arik says something about the fact that his brother Halden is going to be king and he doesn't want the title. So it makes me question, was he intended to have the title, even though Halden seems to be the eldest?
So there was actually something I was going to bring up too, in regard to this. Imogen says, a writer has never been named king.
Right.
And then Violet says,
that's not necessarily true.
And then she's interrupted by Arik.
Which is why I pointed this out.
Halden is Xaden's age because his brother was Halden's twin.
Oh, I did not realize he was a twin.
I think they only mention it in Onyx Storm. But It's not really
Damn.
that big of a spoiler.
Losing a twin. Yee. She's a twin.
Yeah. So we don't know how many sons or daughters that King Tari has, but there's only been 3 mentioned so far. And that's Halden, his brother, and Arik.
Right.
And we don't know if there's... Arik says that he's second in line, so it's Halden and then him.
Yeah, but the way that it's mentioned here in the text made me think, well, I mean, I guess you could say that Imogen is saying you're out of the running forever because you're a writer. And he's like, that's okay, I didn't want to be in the running. I don't know why I interpreted it as being he was in the running at the first level. I don't know why I thought that, but that makes more sense.
But that was the way I took it as well. Although, if Halden dies...
She's saying he can't be king.
She's kind of implying that he took the wrong... Because, most aristocracy, they go into the infantry.
Yeah.
And he's more likely to die as a dragon rider. I don't know if she's questioning... Maybe he came into the Dragon Riders quadrant for power, and maybe he could. She's thinking he could take over, and I don't know.
Maybe, but I'm not sure, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Although I want to know what Violet said. Like, what was Violet going to say?
Yeah.
When you get interrupted, it's generally because of something important in this book. You were going to say something important.
Liam was interrupted.
Your thought.
There's also a moment in this conversation where Violet says, does Halden know? And then Arik and her look at each other for a minute. And it's like, what are you guys not saying?
Yeah.
Also, in the same conversation, he says, Zenal may love you, but let's not test him. Now, This is the 3rd time Zenal is mentioned in this section alone. He seems to be a favorite of Violet's. And I think it is kind of ironic that he's like, let's not test the god of luck. And then they get fucked up because Arik puts his hand in there. He gets blisters. And then when they leave, she instantly gets caught. Almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
So I want to go back, though, to what you were talking about, Lily, with Halden and when they asked if he knew. Like, she asks if Halden knows. And doesn't he say something like, yes, why do you think I'm here? Or something to that effect. And so is there any way that Halden sent him?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Brittany.
So
Definitely
he's doing
not.
it in opposition to Halden. Okay, because I wasn't sure when I was reading it how it actually read. If it was something where they were working together, but apparently not. So, okay.
If you remember, at the very end of Iron Flame, Lilith Sorengale says, "Hey Cam, your father's been looking for you."
Yeah.
I would think that Halden would have tattled on him if they knew where he was. And if they knew who he was, they would know exactly who helped her break into the king's vault.
Right.
Okay.
Picking up on what you were talking about, Violet and the gods, Arik does say that Zenal must love her. And I have a theory that Malik likes her.
Right.
And there's also Dune seems to answer her, if you just get Sloan through this, I'll go to temple and, worship.
Yep. I thought that was interesting because it's actually a prayer. It's not just a bypass of thank God. You know what I mean? Thank the gods.
So maybe Violet is favored by, if not just these 3, but more than one god. And it makes me wonder, why is she so special? Why did the dragons talk about her before she was even a possibility? Could you imagine that the dragons felt that there was something special about her that she talked about her, or that they discussed her in the Vale?
I do think it's interesting.
Now, we do learn a little bit more about a couple of signets here, one being Quinn's and her relationship to her dragon. They brought up that her dragon is her great aunt's dragon, and that her signet is exceptionally strong because of that relationship, and she doesn't have to worry about going mad.
Which immediately I was like, ooh, knowing what I know about Xaden, that concerns me. But also there's a moment here where she says at the end of her quote, she says, dragons aren't supposed to even get close to family lines for that exact reason, like they listen to human rules. She glances at Imogen. I still can't quite get the right shade of pink for your hair. Maybe I'm way overthinking this, but it's the fact that after she gives this whole paragraph about signets and family lines and how dragons don't listen to us, and then she looks at Imogen, I'm like, okay, we talked about in the past whether or not the rebellion students have things that they're hiding from us, and it does make me question.
There's also the interview that Rebecca Yarrow said that maybe the dragons are lying about their names.
Yep.
Or that the writers are lying about their names to the recorder.
Right, so there could be plenty of people who are connected to a family line that they shouldn't be. Or dragons that are connected to a family line.
Now, they did note later on in the book that it's either you go mad or you develop a second signet.
So Xaden got lucky, I guess.
Yeah. At least if I'm remembering correctly. But the other signet that we learn about is Bodhi's.
Oh my god, his signet is nuts. His signet is the fact that he can counter other signets. But the way he does it looks like he's not doing that. He looks like he's winding back time, not just countering signets.
Yeah. And it's interesting because does this only work on physical signets, or is it all signets? And can he feel when a signet's being used if it's like a mind signet?
I would think so. I would think that's part of it, right?
I would think so. But it brings up when Dane challenged Violet on the mat, Imogen ran away, and Violet says that she found the one person who is the closest thing to Xaden. But what if she ran to get him because he can counter Dane's signet?
It's brilliant. Yeah. Another thing, okay, this is so fucking stupid, but if you can gripe about crazy shit, so can I. And it's that whenever she's holding the Warwick's journal, and she's like, I'm careful to touch only the edges with my gloves on. I was like, girl, we don't even use gloves in the archives anymore. That's outdated. We don't do that. It's actually easier to hold and not damage a book without gloves.
There's so many TV shows about how the oil on your hand is going to ruin the page.
Yeah. Now, in archive school, they teach you. Usually you don't have to use gloves unless there's something specific about the item, even if it's really, really old.
So I don't understand why they didn't just solve the Indarna problem by saying that she died in the Battle of Bresson. Because they're going to have to explain why she went from gold to black, and why she's now huge, and why she's no longer a Feathertail. So why not just be like, she died?
I agree, but then also it seems like it seems like that would cause more problems too, because if they said she died, then they would question her bond with Violet and why Violet isn't dead or maybe possibly harmed in some way. And
that
then also
true.
They wouldn't be able to look over her while she's sleeping. And anyways, I think it'd be harder to write her into the story if she died at Resson.
What do y'all think about the secret missions into Poromiel? Do you think they happened or no?
The secret missions in Poromiel?
When the propaganda comes out, they were like, we sent secret missions to Poromiel to see if these cities were actually ruined, but...
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No.
All right. So while in Samara, the big thing that I wanted to bring up is that Mira says that she hasn't seen runes like these in a while when she sees Violet's daggers. So where has she seen these?
Maybe she dated someone who was Tyrish. That'd be crazy.
Then there's the fact that the venin used Pancheck's tactics to attack Cliffbane. I'm just saying, Pancheck is sketch.
I agree. That is so weird.
My last thing I'm going to talk about in my other questions is that Varish is a major. Kaori is a colonel. Nolan is a colonel. That's 2 ranks above major. Why did they fucking follow him?
You're saying that Kaori is 2 ranks above Varish?
Yep.
Yeah, I really do think it's because of Pancheck. Because it is weird. But you know what I love about that scene is that Kaori and Imitario are both standing up for Violet. Imitario's like, okay, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but if I did...
Love that. That was one of my favorite things. I was like, oh, and if I had another student who was my favorite. Yes!
Yeah. And then Kaori is like, I think you abuse your power in general.
Yeah.
Just literally calling him out.
Like, preach!
But Varish only answers to Pancheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly.
So that's, I
mean,
mean,
that's concerning.
Yeah, rank doesn't matter because they know Varish is still, I mean, but yeah, I love Kaori standing up to him.
Yeah. The last thing I do want to bring up is that Devera ends up being on our side. And it's very clear. And I think that,
too.
I mean, yes, obviously. Hell yes. But we were talking about that before, and so I was like, yes, Devera. I totally forgot that she was a part of that propaganda thing.
Yes. It's funny because Lilith says that they start bringing in people into the fold at captain or major, and it seems like they brought her into the fold and she went, no, fuck the shit.
Uh-huh. Because she was recently promoted. And yeah. You can see her start questioning things in the books.
Yeah.
Scenes that we love.
I have to bring up, since we already talked about some, I know you wanted to talk about the Tyrn and Solus problem solved thing. I knew from the second it happened, I was like, oh, fuck, he just accidentally fucked Violet over. Like, oh.
Yeah.
But he's so funny about it because he's like, boom, done.
Yep.
Like, you're welcome, you know?
Problem solved.
And then Violet's like, oh, shit. But I love that when they go to that meeting and he really doesn't want to go in the first place, but Violet kind of talks him into it. And he's like, oh, no, you're not getting down. Like, you're staying strapped in. And he tells her, undo that strap and I'll launch. And then she later calls him an ass, and he's like, I'm a credit to my line. I mean, I don't know. Just the fucking writing for Tyrn is so brilliant. He's
wonderful.
Love him. Yes.
Yeah.
I gotta say, when Jack returned the first time I read this, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, no, he's dead. No, he's dead.
I think all the readers that read this book for the first time were like, the fuck? Like, that was the biggest twist. I was so shocked.
Apparently I missed it, but some people were actually theorizing that he may have lived because they never heard his name called in
the role.
formation.
You know, in my mind, it was just like, we were so happy he was gone. Why would I even be looking for his name in the role?
Exactly. I was like, nope, he's dead.
But you don't hear every roll call, though.
That's true.
Exactly. Why would you be looking for it?
Right?
And I remember when Johan first read it, he was like, ain't no fucking way. That was his genuine response, was the way that Riddick responds is no fucking way. I was like, Riddick once again speaking for the entire audience.
And the last 2 scenes that I want to gush over is, of course, Xaden and Violet reuniting in the bathroom and the rescue. I love the bathroom scene. I love it. But the rescue scene?
I love that he finally says it to her.
Yes, I agree. You know, I also feel like she already knew because she called it out on the parapet that his actions said that he loved her.
And what did I respond in the notes?
I would still want him to say the words.
And you know I'm right. You know I'm right that if he was doing the same and he was not saying it, you would be bummed.
True. But the rescue. Oh my god, the rescue. I love the rescue. It is my favorite scene in the whole series.
It's very good. It's the way that it's done with Dane and Xaden. Oh, and the fact that he literally drops everything and fucking races back.
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks he's not going to do that. She thinks he's just going to forfeit. She thinks he's not going to forfeit everything he's ever worked for. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
He's like, I'll happily watch Arisha burn to the ground.
Sorry, Violet. He is not logical right now.
Yeah. I have to read this. It's his declaration. I do. I'm sorry if you expected me to do the noble thing. I warned you. I'm not sweet or soft or kind, and you fell anyway. This is what you get. Violet, me. The good, the bad, the unforgivable. All of it. I am yours. All you want to know, or you want to know something true, something real? I love you. I am in love with you. I have been since the night the snow fell in your hair and you kissed me for the first time. I am grateful. My life is tied to yours because it means I won't have to face a day without you in it. My heart only beats as long as yours does, and when you die, I'll meet Malik at your side. It's a damn good thing that you love me too, because you're stuck with me in this life and every other that could possibly follow. Even Dane was like, yeah, I fell for him.
Yeah, even Dane was like, yeah, that was a good speech. Not gonna lie.
But this is one of those scenes where I'm like, I can just picture her falling into Xaden and then Garrick coming in and she's like, hi, Garrick. But I will say this, after he makes this declaration, the audiobook, when she says that she loves him too, she's like, I do love you. Like, it's a revelation, and I'm like, girl, just
it should be more like, I do love you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we've covered the major stuff here. If we left out anything, we would love to hear anyone's feedback that they want us to talk about. We'd be happy to cover it on the next episode. So we'll end there. We hope that you'll join us for next week's episode. We'll be discussing Book 2, Iron Flame, chapters 37 through 50. New episodes drop every week. And don't forget to check out last season's discussion on the Zodiac Academy.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. That like and follow are super important for us to continue to bring you new episodes each week, so please, please, please do so. You can also support us by joining us on Patreon. Thank you for listening to the Midnight Readers podcast. We'll see you next week.
Happy reading, listeners. Don't stay up too late.